what better than to look at the state of the union in terms of veganism? Where are we now in terms of the vegan movement, and what do we think the future holds for veganism generally? We've got some great guests to discuss it, so let's get on with it, shall we? Okay. Nigel White is CEO of The Marketing Place. He looks after an awful lot of highly recognizable and fast-growing disruptive brands. Disruptive, I'm just chucking in a marketing term there. I heard it. I saw it on the back of a crisp packet or something. Many of which have won accolades, including the IGD Innovation of the Year, the top 10 fastest growing grocery brand, and 3 times in the top 100 Sunday Times fastest growing brands. You're so disruptive. Doug McNish is an internationally award-winning executive chef and restaurant consultant. He's a best-selling author. He's a passionate educator, celebrated activist, and pioneer of society's plant-forward future, with over 2 decades of expertise launching and developing successful businesses in the food industry. In 2017, Chef McNish was granted the title of Best Chef in Toronto by local media outlets and has been crowned the Iron Chef in multiple live cooking competitions. And he's also no mean sucker of cough sweets, as you may find out later in the podcast. He's fine. And Ankan Linden is a Stockholm-based chef. I'm going to ask you about your nickname, the Duck, in due course. He's a maverick. He doesn't care about Michelin stars. His goal in life is to be the best industrial chef in the world. He's been cooking in professional kitchens since the age of 16. He's relentless in his pursuit to create the most delicious, versatile plant-based products for home cooks. In 2015, he co-founded the award-winning Swedish plant-based meat company Oomph to bring craveable proteins to plant-based culture. You guys, and first of all, Ankan, for starters, it looks like you're in an episode of Lupin on Netflix because you're in the middle of an international art heist. Is that right?
Yes. You can say so.
What are you doing? Where are you and what's going on?
I'm in Stockholm on my way to pick up some art. And now I just try to chill down for the Christmas because it's been such a busy, crazy, fun year for the brand. So yeah, now I'm hanging out here with you.
Sure, in a fast car. Good. And why the Duck?
I mean, it was an early age. Yeah, it was early age when I was in the kitchen, and we was 3 Anders. So it came in a new waiter, and she said like, "Hey, Anders," and all the 3 chefs was like, "Yes, sir." And she was like, "Oh no, we cannot have it like that." In that time, I prepared a duck, and that means Ankan. So she said, "Hey, you're gonna be the Ankan," and then the nickname just I just kept it. So everybody calls me Ankan.
Okay, well, as long as you're happy with Ankan, we'll proceed. Anyway, welcome all of you. Thank you so much. So we're talking about the future of veganism. I believe it's probably, first of all, is it rosy, Nigel, would you say?
Yeah, I think it's incredibly rosy. It's whether you want to talk about veganism or whether you want to talk about the broader plant-based, if you like.
Sure. I think tell me what the difference is first.
Well, the number of vegans is it's growing, but it's still around about 1% of the UK population. Number of vegetarians is around about 7 or 8%, but the number of meat avoiders, the number of dairy avoiders, and the number of free fromers, if you want to call them that, is growing, and that's where all the growth is coming from, and that's what's driving a lot of the new entrants into the marketplace, and it's all very much about plant-based.
Amazing. And what's the situation like in Canada, Doug?
I would say it's the same thing. I had a physical restaurant for 5 years, and I would say during the course of those 5 years, as much as 85% of the people that came through were not vegetarian or vegan. They were just curious about this. And I too follow the marketplace, and I'll say what Nigel said is true in Canada and the United States. I'm in both markets. I have business in both markets, and it's the same thing. People who are just, I like that. What did you say? Meat avoiders?
Yeah. The meat reducers. I think if you look at the number of people wanting to avoid dairy in the UK, it's about 1 in 4 households. And meat is so 25%, and then I think 24%. The next one is meat avoider, and then gluten. The next one early mid-20s. But there's a load of people just, plant-based and veganism is just incredibly fashionable now. So there's a number of reasons people are doing it for going that way for, but it's just very, very on trend, big trend.
And Sweden, how is Sweden looking on the vegan scene?
Sweden, we have the flexitarian. I call them. It's around, I think it's around 30%, and the vegetarian is around 12, and the vegans, I think, is around 3 or something. But we are coming in Sweden pretty far ahead, and I mean nowadays plant-based is cool. It's edgy. It's everybody wants to be around it. Even if you're 6 or 12, it's nothing strange anymore. Thank God. So that's the situation here.
Yeah, there's that famous quote, isn't there? First they laugh at you, whatever it is. And it wasn't Gandhi. I can't remember who it was.
Scarface. Scarface.
Was it Scarface?
I don't know. But, I'll just say
they often get confused. Yeah.
I've been in this world, I've been vegan. I don't know how long it is, 16 or 17 years. But when I first started in the stores, for example, there wasn't even almond milk. It was only soy milk. So to see things change from that to now, it's just been mind-blowing for me to watch. And someone who's business minded for the last decade and doing entrepreneurship, I'm just like, wow, I can't believe it. Whether a product tastes good or not, it's selling. And it's remarkable to see.
Yeah. Nice. All right, let's get to some of the questions people have sent in. Thanks so much. It was a really broad range of questions. Really appreciate it. Leanne says, what do you think the next vegan food trend will be? Ankan, let's start with you.
I mean, I think I know this is the biggest trend, the plant-based trend, who's right now happening. And we're just in the beginning of it. We haven't seen it, anything like it. And this is going to be the giga trends for decades. So I don't see if it, like new products or new ingredients. That's not the case. So this is going to stay forever now.
Nice.
Yeah.
And Doug, what do you think?
I see things just getting better. I see big tech getting involved more and more. I see the scientists getting involved more and more. And I see a lot of money being thrown at things, so plant-based cheeses are great, but they're missing the casein. So I see the casein evolving. I see the steaks evolving. I see things becoming more and more closer to, quote, the real thing or the traditional product. Just there's so much money being thrown at all of this. And I think we're going to see some, in the next 2 to 5 years, just some amazing technological advancements of how products taste.
I kind of want to jump into Sammy's question, which says, I'd like to know what the panel feels about lab-grown meat. What do you personally think about that, Doug?
It's so difficult. As someone who's an ethical vegan for a long time, I to be honest, I still don't know where I lie with it. I mean, am I happy that animals aren't being slaughtered? Yes. I don't know if it's going to change the tastes of people, though, because they're getting used to plant-based products, which aren't, bleeding, which don't have the exact same muscle fibers and textures. Going to lab-grown meat might make them have a taste for that blood again and go back to eating.
You think they're going to bloodlust? Find the nearest field. Where are they?
Listen, when you go vegan, plant-based, the more and more you add into your diet, the less you crave and want the animal foods.
Your palate changes, doesn't it?
Your palate changes 100%.
Yeah.
So if you're going to start eating lab-grown meat, it's still going to have the blood. It's still going to have the connective tissue. Environmentally friendly, I guess so. No animals being slaughtered, I guess so. So am I happy people eating that? For sure. Yeah. But I think only time will tell. And as an ethical vegan myself, I don't know. I'm still on the fence about it.
I mean, blood and connective tissue, what's not to love? Nigel, what do you feel about vegan food trends and lab-grown meat? I'm conflating two.
Right. I think you're going to get more. I agree very broadly with what Doug was saying, actually, in terms of you're going to get more fragmentation. I think you're going to get superior products coming out. I think we're at sort of plant-based 1.0 at the moment. You're going to see more products come out which are improved from a health point of view. I think you're going to see in the food service area much more plant-only top-end restaurants, or plant-led ones where plant menu leads and with some meat potentially. And I think cultured meat, or lab-grown meat, or cultivated meat, or clean meat, whatever they want to talk about it. I actually sit on a panel with a couple of retailers in the UK about cultured meat, and I think it's definitely coming towards us. They've been given the regulatory okay in Singapore to sell it now. So once they get over the regulatory hurdles and the scaling up hurdles, I think then they've got the biggest hurdle, which is going to be the whole consumer perception, and I think language is going to be a massive thing there. Because if you talk about lab-grown meat, forget it, people won't buy it. If you talk about cultured meat, doesn't mean anything. Cultivated meat, all those types of things. And when many years ago I used to work on Quorn back in the day.
I was just about to say the whole mycoprotein thing that they came up with was so smart.
It was we started talking about it as meat free.
Right.
So we coined the sort of meat free category because we really struggled. Originally we called it we talked about it as being a distant relative of the mushroom.
Yeah.
Which went down like a lead balloon, and people had leaned forward and said, "What, like a second cousin?" So you start to realise that the language and the emotion around food is really important. And the only trouble with scientists and too many tech people is they don't really get the emotional side. So it's really important. The language and the appetite appeal is there, which is where the chefs come in.
Yeah. Ankan, are you looking to create any lab-grown duck with oomph?
I mean, my philosophy is what's best for the humans and what's best for the planet. Then I'm all in for it. And if that's going to be grown meat, and that's very good for environment friendly, and it's very good for the humans, okay, that's the good road. But I think, as the other chef said, like we also need to do the homework with ourselves to also change the palates of our taste and experience. So that's also a big journey. Every human had to actually training themselves, because meat cannot only be the solution of everything. I mean, the meat industry is killing us because they are very, very rich. So I don't see the point why eating that meat, actually. I know why people eat it, because it's very cheap and they like the texture. But, let's do the big change instead than do lab meat. I mean, it's going to take so much energy, and, I just like the food safety is just freaking me out when the beans is even better than the meat. So why even go over there, in a way. So I'm a little double shift here, but yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things that, I remember very early on in this series of podcasts, I was quite dismissive of, like, I was saying, can we not get over Oreos and Biscoff and stuff in baking and stuff? And someone made a really important point, which is just that for some people, it's just a really useful transitioning food. If it helps them get through cravings those first few weeks, maybe, it's a good thing. I wanted to pick up on Hiral sent a question, which kind of feeds into what you were talking about, Nigel, in terms of trends and plant-led restaurants. Hiral says, do you think we'll get to a point where it's just vegan food with meat options on a menu, like Wagamama's? Yeah, they're the first one to go over 50% vegan, I think, aren't they, on their menu?
Yeah, I think you're increasingly seeing, especially London and the southeast, more and more places which are really top end, beautiful plant-based food, and then you're getting some quite well-known chefs who are opening up plant-led with a sort of smattering of meat dishes. And I think you're then getting you'll always get a counter trend of some who are going hardcore meat.
Right.
And so I think you're going to have a number of different options. But if you go back 20 years ago and you look for the vegan option, it was always a sad little one in the bottom right-hand corner of the menu. Whereas now,
it was
more
chips.
often not, they'll lead they'll lead with it. And I think what's an interesting dynamic as well is what's happening between vegans and vegetarians, because we picked up that a lot of vegetarians are unhappy that they're being pushed out for the vegan options, whereas they want dairy and they want cheese and things like that. So you've got all these different audiences. Exactly, you've got all these different audiences to try and please, and they're also, if you've got a vegan in a group and there's say 4 or 5 of you out to eat, they probably have a disproportionate amount of influence on where to eat, depending upon the vegan option, for example.
Yeah. Jess asks, how do you feel about huge meat fast food chains like McDonald's and Nando's giving a vegan option at their branches?
Yeah, I think it's inevitable. I think it's inevitable for 2 reasons, really. One is that, like I say, the influence, you just cannot avoid plant-based at the moment and vegan. And 2 is that, food trends, it's a sign really of how big a trend it is. They always start in sort of street food and top end sort of more innovative restaurants, then go into grocery, top end into mainstream, and then ultimately they end up in QSR like McDonald's. So utterly predictable.
Yeah. And Doug, what's the sort of the mainstream into fast food scene like in Canada?
Yeah, it's big. McDonald's hasn't launched yet, but I was part of a campaign when Beyond Meat launched the burgers here. There's a fast food chain called A&W, and it's all across Canada. And we launched 3 years ago, and it's huge. It's a huge segment of the marketplace, and it's only growing. A&W has added nuggets. Again, I've been in this 16, 17 years, and I couldn't even get my pizza places to deliver me a pizza without cheese back then.
Amazing.
And now it's all of them they all have Beyond Meat. They all have, various plant-based brands, sausages, pepperoni, et cetera, et cetera. So it's huge here in terms of marketplace and everything. It's huge.
And how do you feel about those fast food chains embracing vegan stuff?
Well, listen, again, I think it comes down to the definition of the 2 terms. There's plant-based and there's vegan. So vegan really, to make vegans happy, people who are ethical vegans, I think it's fantastic. From a health perspective, I mean, it's not healthy. It's still processed. It's still sodium. It's still inflammatory fats. So I think it's still something that we can rejoice. Someone like me, who I can order a pepperoni pizza for dinner tonight, and I can do meatballs, and I know Oomph is exploding into the US market right now. Congrats on that, my friend.
Thank you.
So, from a health perspective, it's still fast food, but from a market perspective, it's amazing to see. And it certainly keeps people like myself pretty busy.
Sure. Ankan, how do you feel about vegan stuff?
I mean, I think it's great. I mean, go into the big masses that people are, and it's a big statement for the restaurant chains. I mean, here in Sweden, you cannot go anywhere it's plant-based everywhere. Plant-based sausage on the gas station. McDonald's gonna change the whole menu to be plant-based 2025 or something, like 70%. So I think it's great, and also it's great for the new generation. And I agreed, it's not so healthy, but whatever, don't eat every day, but it's available. So it's nothing strange, it's nothing special. It's just natural to eat plant-based, right?
Yeah.
So it's great.
And is maybe the point that what you have to do is to find a pathway for these traditional meat-based companies into veganism themselves, however long that may take. This is the beginning of them perhaps on their own journey transition. Like, if we want everybody to transition, you have to bring those big companies along with you, I guess.
Exactly.
Would you agree, Nigel?
Yeah, no, absolutely. But you know, I mean, it's interesting that a lot of the plant-based pioneers are obviously they're getting invested by a lot of the animal based companies, if you like, and going a lot of the time just, you know, they're seeing themselves more and more less as, say, a meat company or a non-meat company, but a protein company, and we'll put that protein from a variety of different sources depending upon what consumers want, and consumers more and more want plant-based.
Yeah. I could really go off on 1 hour about a sort of how there are parallels with the fossil fuel industry, and how I believe hydrogen has to be the way forward because it's a commodifiable fuel that people will go and buy in their service stations and their petrol stations and all the rest of it. But that's probably for another podcast somewhere else. Another time. It's just my opinion. Okay, let's move on. Jamie says, I feel most things have been veganized. I just feel the vegan seafood market is yet to compete like the vegan beef and chicken products that are out there. Do you know if companies are working on this, or could you recommend any products that I can try? It is the food I miss the most. Yeah, well, I mean, let's start by asking you, Doug, were you a seafood fan? Do you miss it?
100%. I love seafood. And yes, I miss it. I'm actually working on a project right now. I'm part of the Feed the Next Billion. I'm on a team. There's 4 or 5 of us, and I was shortlisted as a semifinalist. So I'm actually in the process now of developing a plant-based piece of fish.
Wow.
Yeah, we're about a quarter of the way into the year, and it's hard. It's very hard. The muscle fiber and the structure is difficult, but we're going to get there. I'm going to get there. And I think it's important to veganize it. And there's a ton of companies working on it right now all over the world. And it's pretty cool to see, you know, Good Catch. I think they were first to market, and so it's cool to see their growth. And I know it's the next big thing. And, you know, really quickly too, I think eggs too. I mean, I think seafood and eggs are the biggest things, but yeah, I'm excited for the future for that.
Yeah, we're going to come on to eggs actually directly. Nigel, what about you?
Fish, yeah, very much. I was talking to the guys at Good Catch a couple of months ago because they're over here in the UK with their tuna product. I was at we had a big, the Great and Good in the plant-based world were at the Plant-Based World Expo in London a couple of months ago, and there was half a dozen seafood brands there. So there was not sure if Good Catch were there, but there was a Sea Bloom there, which was a really good tuna, and there was an exceptionally good shrimp product. I can't remember who the company was, but there's some really, really very good products coming through in that area. So yeah, I think so. And if we come on to eggs, I think that's another area that you can see all of the dairy guys. You can see, you know, a lot of plant-based dairy, very good quality stuff coming through.
Yeah. And do Oomph have plans to launch? I'm sure everyone's screaming for some vegan octopus.
Yeah, I don't want to be cocky here, but we are already done with that work, and we have done a new product, and we're going to launch it in England first.
Oh, wow.
So that's going to be like fish and chips concept. And
wow.
We tried it out now for 150, 175 chefs, and no one could tell it was plant-based. Everybody actually thought it was a really tender cod.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm very proud over that product. Maybe my chef friend in Canada are gonna get a little pissed, but we need to try it because it's fish and chip style.
Yeah.
So it's an unbelievable good product, and for sure that's the next step, because the fish industry is, excuse my language, but it's totally fucked up. And that's actually more dangerous for the environment. What these guys doing than the land animals. So I'm very happy we can take this step now, that we can give people things that they doesn't need to feel they need to compromise when they eat. They're actually enjoying it from the beginning, and they don't question if it's plant-based or real fish. That's the key. So I'm very happy about it. So the future is here for that.
Jamie, you heard it here first. In the meantime, I put in a shout for Marigold. Do tiny cans of, I think they call it tuna with an H on the end.
Yeah.
It's pretty good stuff. If you want it in like a pasta bake or a tuna sandwich or a tuna melt, it's so oily and good. I recommend it. Okay, let's move on to eggs then. Benita says, I see on Instagram these really realistic eggs, like Kucha restaurant in Bristol. Please could I have some recommendations on how I can achieve this? Well, we had Nando from Kucha on the podcast a few months ago. Might be worth going and digging out that episode. But in the meantime, have you experimented with egg making, Nigel?
These ones that are seen on Instagram, the really realistic, is that like a scrambled egg, I'm assuming?
I think there are ones that look like fried eggs.
Really?
Yeah, wow. I've seen some pretty amazing stuff.
Okay, not come across those ones. I've tried some scrambled eggs. There's a brand in the UK called Cracked, which launched, which I know the chefs who are behind it, and it's very good when served. A scrambled egg should be warm and freshly done. It was very good. So yeah, I that's the only one that I've seen out there as a brand in any sort of scale in a supermarket. But so yeah, that would be my recommendation.
Doug, are you big on the egg stuff?
I mean, well, there's several brands of scramble here in North America. Just Egg. There's another one called The Body. There's several here, and they're all pretty good. I like them. But I've actually been doing sunny side up vegan eggs. I started developing it in 2014.
Oh, wow.
So I'm actually at the point where I actually have a sunny side up egg with a yolk that runs. And
can you tell us how'd you do it? It's
reverse spherification.
I thought so. Yeah, I thought to myself, it's probably reverse.
Well, I had the yolk done a long time ago. That was easy for me, and so I just used to scoop out a piece of silken tofu and rest it in there, and that made my restaurant. I mean, my revenue went from $1,500 a day to $4,500 a day.
Wow!
And then
just on the eggs,
just because people wanted it, and it went on the cover of magazines, and I had a video go viral, and I was getting orders from all over the world. And then so I took the next step and I created a white. So I'm at the point now where there's a couple of restaurants in Toronto that have it on their menu, and I'll be adding on menus of the other restaurants I work with. But I'm working on scaling it now. So that's one of my big goals for 2022 is, I can produce 300 to 500 a day. That's not a problem, but I want to get it I want 10,000 an hour. You know what I mean? So that's my goal for 2022 and trying to scale up my sunny side up egg.
And how long have you been vegan? Do you miss the eggs?
I never been an egg guy. No. I can miss it sometimes when I, want to have the technical aspect in the food. But eating it, no, I can be without it. I've never been that guy who eats eggs so much.
Yeah. Well, I've reached a point where, for me, block of standard tofu, like cauldron or any of those ones that come in packs, drain it, freeze it, thaw it, slice it in half so it's half the thickness, fry it for a bit. If you want, stick a hole in the middle or make a pocket. In the meantime, in a saucepan, a little bit of gram flour, sprinkle it all with some kale and amak. The gram flour, you can make a kind of a yolk, stick it in, put that in a sandwich with some ketchup. You won't know the difference. It's great. Mick says, I really want to perfect a vegan steak. I was a heavy red meat eater when I ate animals, and some of the products I've come across don't match up to steak for me yet. I know it's probably all about the seasoning. Could you either recommend a steak product or give me some tips on how I can achieve this texture and taste at home? I would love a sauce to match too. Oh, Mick. Ankan, let's start with you, because you used to cook meat.
Yeah, a long time ago. I mean, I started to go plant-based in my restaurant at the beginning of the middle of 90s.
Oh, wow.
So I'm an old fart. I mean, meat itself doesn't taste anything. It's totally tasteless. It's all about the texture, right? So when the texture is right, then it's very easy to cook. So this is it's a hard cookie because no one can really copy a steak really yet, except the 3D printing meat I've seen now. And I mean, Oomph, the products we have in the range of Oomph, we have a few products who is really, the texture fits meat eaters really well. I mean, we have full cowboys in Texas, and they thought it was meat because the texture is right.
Wow.
So my solution is to try plant-based product that have the right texture for yourself, and then taste it up with your favorite sauce, and that could be whatever, right?
Sure. Did you have a favorite sauce for steak?
Can't remember.
Sure. That was a long time ago.
Remember.
You're an old fart. No disrespect. Nigel, as a young fart. No, I'm kidding.
Thank you.
Well,
never been called that yet.
Okay, yeah, welcome.
That's all right, good.
Do you remember steak? Did you love steak? And how would you source a steak? And how would you source a steak?
This I think is it's almost like the Holy Grail, I would have thought.
Right.
And I've come across the 3D printing of steaks. Once I get my head around that, there's a reason that most of the big meat-free products are around the sort of products where you can mince meat, because they're, things like burgers and sausages and mince and things like that. I think steak is if somebody can do it, there's a lot of money to be made there. And I remember, again, go back 16, 17 years, being in a research group with somebody talked before we were launching a Quorn roast for a replica for a Sunday roast, if you like. And I remember some guy saying, look, if I think of a roast Sunday roast and a roast beef, my mouth starts salivating. But as soon as you put the word Quorn before it, it totally dries up. And that's when you sort of think, there's something around steaks which is very emotional as well, and the anticipation and everything like that. So there's a lot of money to be made from whoever can perfect it, I guess, would be my answer.
You're so right that there's an almost fetishization of steak, isn't there? That's a really, really good point. Doug.
So I've been playing with seitan for 15 or 16 years, and I had a strip loin on a menu. I've had tenderloins on menus. I have to plug my fourth cookbook, The Classics Veganized. There is a recipe. Yeah, there is a recipe for
so that's what you were reaching for on this show.
Yeah. So there is a recipe for a New York strip loin in here. And so the way I created this recipe is, because seitan is seitan, and it's always going to have a certain texture and a certain taste to it. But the marinade was everything for me, and it is everything. So it's a mixture of red wine, Dijon, thyme, oil, and garlic. And so the way I created the recipe was so that the grill marks would actually char it a little bit. So the Dijon and the oil create that emulsification. It almost coats the top. So when it hits the hot grill, it creates the char. And the red wine really helps with the umami. Nice. So it's a mental thing that when someone tastes that steak, they're like, holy shit, this actually has that taste of a steak. The texture is not perfect. And as Nigel said, once they can create that at scale and have the same muscle fibers, there is a lot of money to be made there. But in terms of plant-based steaks, I have done it. And if you're okay with seitan, I know I always find 50% of the people aren't, 50% of the people are, give or take. If you enjoy that texture, then it's definitely doable.
I think seitan is a great shot. Is Oomph, Ankan, is it seitan based?
No, it's we are working with soy. We're working with mung, fava beans, fava protein, and pea protein.
Wow, amazing. Yeah. The thing I love about seitan, and I think with your products too, is that you get those long fibrous strands. It does feel like you're sinking your teeth into muscle, which some savage part of me seems to enjoy. I don't know what's wrong with me.
Well, and just to add to that quickly, I did a rack of ribs, and I spent oh my gosh, I probably spent 3 months just working on that one recipe, and it's pretty good. It's in my new book, The Classics Veganized.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But I use quick cook oats and a ton of finely diced onion with the seitan, and it really gave nice long fibers, as you were talking about, and it turned out really well. So if anyone listening wants to scale up ribs or steak, just let me know.
Yeah, that's The Classics Veganized, available now at Amazon and all the bookshops. Okay, finally, Louise says, could I please have an omelette recipe? Oh, we're back on the X. I've tried some recipes, but nothing has worked for me. Thank you. Nigel. You're not.
No, me, no.
From you.
It's as simple as that. It's,
sure, that's fine.
It's one for Doug. I point you straight towards Doug on this one because some of his creations sound really very good.
If only there was a compilation and a book of some kind that we could find them all in.
Exactly, you got there before me.
Oh, there it is. The Classics Veganized. Doug.
I sound like the old fart now. I was doing vegan omelets 14, 15 years ago. The old school way is silken tofu, nutritional yeast, black salt. You need binders in there. So I like cornstarch and flax. Corn flour works as well, really well to bind it up. And then turmeric for color. And you just need to blend the right proportions, and you put it in a squeeze bottle, and it works just like an omelet. And in the Classics Veganized, you will find that recipe.
There you go. Amazing.
But yeah, it's definitely doable. And then those other products that are on the market now that work for scramble, they all work for omelets as well, if you want something more, more mass produced.
Sure. And do you do an omelet?
Yeah, but I have nothing to add in this. I think the two brothers there have covered it all.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm gonna suggest. I mean, you can go back through the podcast, but I've done a hybridized version of two recipes from two people. Anton Petrov talked about this gram flour slurry. So you take, I think it's 100 grams of gram flour, and I think maybe 500 grams of water. You sort of stir it up a bit. Don't worry about it. You leave it for 4 or 5 days to ferment. Then you whisk it up, and you have some of that. And now I'm taking, I think it's a recipe from Richard Macon, School Night Vegan, who he uses, those bean curd sheets. I can never remember the name of them.
Yuba.
Yes, Yuba. You take some of that, break it up, soak it so that it softens, and then cook those two things together, stirring them all the while. And you have this thing that's got some fibrous bits, some sort of like slightly tougher bits from the Yuba. But there's this depth of flavor from the fermented gram flour slurry holding it together that, I'm not going to lie, it's out of this world. So give that a go. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Let's, before we say goodbye to you, find out where we can find out more about you and what you do. Nigel, let's begin with you.
So I can be reached on nigel@themarketingplace.co.uk, and we run a marketing consultancy which very much focuses in, after 25 years in this sector, on the plant-based sector, and especially brands that particularly want to grow in the UK market, but increasingly, especially in things like dairy-free cheese, we're doing much more on a global basis, because I think it's fair to say that the UK is, along with parts of America and actually Sweden, I have to say that, it's very much an advanced market, and other parts of the world are following it.
Amazing. Doug, what about you?
DougMcNish.com. Instagram is Doug McNish. Twitter is Doug McNish.
Do you have a cookbook out at all or anything?
My friend, I've written 4. And sure. I was kind of saying
veganized.
I was kind of say, people are like, why are you going to write another one? And I'm like, it's like getting drunk. You wake up the next day and you're like, I'm never drinking again. And you finish, I'm never doing this again. So I have written 4 books. And then my newest one is The Classics Veganized.
The Classics Veganized.
That's a bit about me. The last couple of years with COVID have definitely slowed me down a little bit, but I've come back now and just growing again, and there's some exciting projects to launch in 2022.
Amazing. Sounds great. And Ancan, when you're not in the middle of an international art heist, Where can people find you and your stuff?
You can reach out to Live Kindly Collective, and also you can connect with me on Kitchen Collective in Live Kindly. There we are available. So that's what I do.
Sounds great. I'm going to put in a belated shout out for people. I can't remember who it was. Who was it was looking for fish that was good? It was Jamie. I always say this: the TKC vegan cod fillet. If you search for that, it's a great product and worth a go. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Before I go, though, just to let you know that next week we're doing another one of our desert island dishes special. Vegans constantly asked, what would you do if you were stuck on an island with a pig? Well, what if it wasn't a pig? What foods would you like to be stuck on a desert island with? And we're going to be asking Matt Pritchard. You'll know him. He's the one off of Dirty Sanchez and Balls of Steel, and who had the first ever mainstream cookery show on the BBC with Dirty Vegan. It's all perfectly clean and family friendly. I mean, I cut some bits out, obviously. Anyway, I hope you'll join us for that. In the meantime, don't forget, there's veganlifemag.com, where you can go and buy the magazine in a shop, and we are veganlife_podcast on Instagram if you'd like to join us for some exclusive bits and pieces over there. I don't know, some old gubbins. In the meantime, from me, Jake Yap, thanks very much for listening. Do consider subscribing and sharing, and goodbye. This has been a Swanburst Media production.